Chapter 30. Address on 69th Birthday. Tribute to a Little Anatomist. Parents' Duty. When Still Was Off. A Warrior from Birth. Who Discovered Osteopathy. Clairvoyant and Clairaudient. Born to Know Something of Drugs. The Fight to Preserve Health. Mathematical Fits. Climatic Effect on the Lungs. Diet. Consternation. Why I Love God. Ladies and gentlemen, strangers, boys, and little girls, we have passed through a great national conflict. 30 years have come and gone since then. We have had great speeches in those times from such men as Lincoln, Seward, Chase, and thousands of mouths were then opened for the sustaining of the American flag. Those speeches will be read with interest for years to come, but no speech did I ever listen to during the hours of the rebellion, while in camp life, or on the bloody fields of war, where men fell like stars from heaven to defend their principles on both sides, and to sustain the flag that should be respected by the nations of the world. No speech has ever come from man's mouth which equaled the one from that little girl, when she numbers her bones, rightly placing, naming, and giving the uses of them. That is the kind of intelligence we want. I have been proud when I met man that were with me on the field of battle on either side, but I do not know that my heart ever had a sweeter feeling than while that little girl was saying her bone, muscle, and ligament piece. Teach your children that, and they will have less use for war. War comes to settle a difficulty through which the brain cannot see. Here is something encouraging, nice girls, nice flowers, and the smiling faces, and I know every one of you intends to master anatomy. It is their parents' duty to teach them something of this. They should know every muscle and its use, every ligament and its use, the bones and the blood vessels, because the surgeon's uncompromising knife today quivers over the heads of thousands of girls in the United States, and, like the eagle, tears their vitals from them, not even eating their flesh when they're dead. We have met here on this birthday occasion, which is also the anniversary of 3 or 4 other important events. 3 years ago today, the first shovelful of dirt was removed from the southeast corner of the center of this building. When marked out, the stakes were 70 and 80 feet apart. The people looked at me and said, "Is Still going to put up that large building? What is the matter with him? We have always heard he was a little off. We know he is off now." A year ago, last May, he was off again by building the North and South editions, and there is no telling what day he will be off again. 35 years ago this day, the blood of brothers was spilled in this city by the cannon, sword, and cold lead. 69 years ago, a great question was before the thinking people of the state of Virginia. They said there was something strange appeared about 3 miles west of Jonesboro. The wise men of the East and the women of the West were called together. They said, "What is it?" They studied a minute. An old lady said, "Perhaps it is a baby." As near as I can remember, I was a warrior at that time, and I told them so in plain English in less than 1 hour. My mother said I could come as near saying "war," "wah," as any child she ever saw when I was an hour old. I could say it with a kind of a southern twang, and it has been war ever since for some cause. Now you are interested in this great question of osteopathy. When a preacher gets up, he takes a text, then he preaches to it, and from it, just as he can. If I take my text, I expect I will preach a good ways from it. My text is this: Who discovered osteopathy? 24 years ago, the 22nd day of next June, at 10 o'clock, I saw a small light in the horizon of truth. It was put in my hand as I understood it, by the God of nature. That light bore its face the inscription, "This is my medical library, surgery and obstetrics. This is my book with all directions, instructions, doses, sizes, and quantities to be used in all cases of sickness and birth, the beginning of man, in childbirth, childhood, youth, and declining days. I am somewhat of what people call inspired. We Methodists call it intuitive. The other classes have different names for it. Clairvoyant and clairaudient. Sometimes I was so clairvoyant that I could see my father 20 miles from home. I could see him very plainly cutting a switch for my brother Jim and I, if we hadn't done a good day's work. That is called clairvoyance. Then I could hear him say, "If you don't plow faster, I will tan you twice a week." That is clairaudience. I was born to know something of drugs. I knew they tasted nasty. I knew they made me sick and very sick. I knew I didn't like them. I grew up with the question as soon as I was old enough to reason at all, whether or not God justified by any means whatever the idea that a man should be released from one poison by use of another. That, if the season should be cold, hot, wet, or dry, and you should become sick, which makes poisons in the blood, stagnation, making a new matter in it, which strikes the vital organs and there causes a contention. Vitality is all the while trying to check and throw off all impurities and keeps the body in continual fight. Fight for what? To maintain its ground as a healthy body. I commenced the hunt when but a child and kept it up until I was 40 years old. I could see the action of electricity. I could see it give out lights in the heavens where there was no blacksmith up there to hammer out the sparks. I could see the stars flying across the heavens in 1834, firecrackers in heaven. How is that firecracker work done? Is there any firecracker work going on in the human blood? Where is your battery? What is the matter with your battery when you have fever? What is fever? Oh, the eminent authors say it is a peculiar increase of temperature, causes unknown. As we don't know them, we will give them a name so we will know what to call them. We will name them typhus, typhoid, malarial, etc., according to the seasons of the year. We name them according to something. They have a system of naming them. We call it symptomatology. It is a species of anatomy when you study it. You put the parts all together, and you have made a something, and that is croup. You put in some variations, and it is called fever. Subtract something, and put in 2 or 3 other kinds of something, and you have pneumonia. Subtract a little and add a little, and you have flux. Subtract 4 and add 2, and you have fits. The doctor has treated the effect and not the cause. Therefore it has been necessary to make laws in their favor. It has been necessary during the last 20 years to fortify against individual attacks on the system because the people are like that little girl. They know how many bones they have in their wrist. 40 years ago it was not supposed that a woman knew whether she had 1 bone above the elbow or 100, and a great many could not tell. She could not train her child differently because anatomy to her was a blank. During the last 20 years, it has been a discussion as to whether we will be benefited by taking any grade of drugs, or if it would not be better to take some kind of diet. We have diet shops in America and in Europe. We buy and eat from both, and grunt just as loud as if we had never heard of either. Now let us see what condition man is in. He occupies all the zones on the globe